My name is Saleem Hue Penny. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's public reading, number 2 of the annual 2023 conference. I am a Black man with glasses, a mustache, partially visible right-sided cochlear implant. I'm wearing kind of this floral, shiny, light blue flower situation in contrast to the overcast rain in the window behind me with a rocking chair and some Legos. I am very, very excited and honored to be able to share space with everybody tonight. Some of the most talented poets that I have gotten to come across, and hopefully some of the ones that you have yet to even meet, because it's more exciting to finish an evening with a whole new set of folks to read. So just to give everybody a lay of the land, I love to have a little bit of a map when I'm stumbling through Chicago on the train. We are going to begin our evening with 2 featured readings. I'll introduce each of those featured readers who are faculty at the retreat this year. And from there, we'll proceed to have readings by our individual fellows. I am excited about this night because it's fellows from multiple years, sort of spanning the young lifespan of Zoeglossia. On tech assistance, we'll be having Robbie and Tanya. If you have specific concerns, especially around accessibility, please let us know in real time so that we can pause and address those and make sure that everybody is included and welcome. All right, so with that, I will go ahead and do what I love to do in a reading, which is to take 3 breaths to center and ground ourselves. Okay, so we're going to try to do 4 count breaths in and a 4 count out. Okay, so let's begin. In and out. Even deeper. In and out. This time let your shoulders hang as loose as you can. In and out. For this last one, let your jaw be as loose as it can. In and out. All right. We are in the space. First up on our list tonight, we have distinguished faculty with it. I'm so sorry, I'm going to mute my phone. We have distinguished faculty with us, and I am pleased to have gotten to work together on a Poem of the Week series and to do some other collaborations. So just excited. ire'ne Silva is up first. ire'ne is the author of 3 chapbooks, Animal, Indigene, and Enduring Azucares on Sibling Rivalry Press 2015. Her 2 full-length poetry collections, Furia, Mouthfeel Press 2010, and Blood Sugar Canto, Saddle Road Press 2016, were finalists for the International Latino Book Award in Poetry. Her most recent poetry collection...
I am so sorry. Sylvia. I have to interrupt you. That's a really old bio. That's Black books ago. So
okay, all
so
right. That shows that we have progress and growth always. Would you be interested in doing a brief or lengthy bio, as it were?
I would drop it in the chat.
Okay,
because it takes a while. But okay. But yes.
I'm happy to read it. Is that okay?
If you want to go for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So that's great. All right. ire'ne Lara Silva is the author of 4 poetry collections: Furia, Blood Sugar Canto, Kusikai, House of Song, and First Poems, 2 chapbooks, Enduring Azucares and Hibiscus Tacos, and a short story collection, Flesh to Bone, which won the Premio Aztlan Award, I'm assuming. ire'ne is the recipient of a 2021 Tasahio Writers Grant, a 2017 NALEC Fund for the Arts Grant, the final Alfredo Cisneros del Moral Award, and was the fiction finalist for Arroyo's 2013 Gift of Freedom Award. Most recently, ire'ne was awarded the 2021 Texas Institute of Letters Shrike Award for Best Short Nonfiction. ire'ne is currently a writer at large for Texas Highways magazine and is working on a second collection of short stories titled The Light of Your Body. A new poetry collection, The Eaters of Flowers, is forthcoming from Saddle Road Press in January 2024. So you have something good to look forward to, everyone, in this new year. Please join me in welcoming ire'ne Lara Silva.
Thank you, Saleem, and thank you, everybody. It's been so far an amazing and intense and very warm experience to be part of Zoeglossia. I'm very, very happy to be here. So let me see. There's several poems I'm going to share. First, from the Fletcher collection, which was published in 2016, and was a book that I wrote because I think at that point, in 2008, I was diagnosed as diabetic and was put straight on insulin. And I have diabetes on both sides of my family for several generations. And so I felt like I needed to write, going to Toni Morrison's advice, I needed to write a book that I couldn't find anywhere. And I couldn't find poems about diabetes. And for me, poetry is always where I go to make sense of things. And so I needed it in poem form. And so I wrote this book that was all about every single aspect that I could think of having to do with diabetes, and most importantly, having to do with fear, because there was so much fear in everything that when doctors spoke to me, when I spoke to other people, fear was always the dominant emotion when it came to discussing diabetes. So there was a little poem that I wrote, Song for Fear, that was actually inspired by a poem by Urayoan. A Song for Fear. I think you live in my blood, running, always running, living in my belly, living in my blood, living in my eyes. I have been searching for you, wanted to know where you've lived in my body, so that I could uproot you, set you on fire, smoke you out, lance you, drain you, bleed you, render you nothing, less than nothing. But here you have been, cradled against me, a changeling child racing in my blood, terrorizing my organs, draining my strength, leaving me alone in a world of narrow bridges. When I was a child, I was afraid of the roaring lion in the hallway, afraid of cockroaches, afraid of my father's anger. I am afraid of other things now. My body out of control, exhaustion, amputation, dying before my brother and leaving him defenseless. I am afraid of more losses that will call me to be stronger than I am. I see you now, fear. There is a place for you here, and there is work for you. But you cannot remain rampant and uncontrolled. You cannot claim my entire body as your refuge, your hideout, your food. In return, I promise not to eat you. I won't tear at you with my teeth, poisoning myself. I will watch over you, and it will be safe for you to be a small and furred creature. And at dawn, I will remember to sing to you too. There are many roads, and the sun and the rain and the wind and the earth will give us shelter. We do not have to be afraid.
Mm.
And there was another poem I wanted to share from that collection. I think a lot of us are familiar with the artist Frida Kahlo, a Mexican painter who passed away in 1953, I believe. A lot of her work has become commonplace, and has been kind of perceived now to be sort of kitschy just because it's been so popular. But I wanted to write something about how important it's always been, how important her art's always been to me, because it's visceral in its depiction of emotional and psychological and physical pain. So this is a poem for Frida. Home to Frida, patron saint of art and pain. Half my life, Frida, Half my life has passed since I first saw your paintings, the photographs of you, your magnificent eyes, pools of fury and pain, shooting sparks and light swallowing tenderness, the lines bracketing your mouth, scoring your eyes, the line of your lips which read the ache of telling so much truth, the ache of your defiant silence. You would not weep your body's pain in anything but paint. What do I need feet for if I have wings, you said, and cast your physical body into the sky? I am not as strong as you, Frida. I am not as brave. When I am in pain, I want to cry. I want to give up. I want someone to hold me, someone to carry me. I want to not have a body. Half my life ago, I could admire you, lying in bed, your torso in a cast, flowers in your hair. I kept tiny postcard prints of the broken column and the wounded deer, and worshiped the tears from your eyes, poetry for my eyes, speaking the weeping in my heart. But what did I know, girl that I was, who had never known pain without escape, who had never known loss without remedy, girl that I was, who still dreamed with innocent fervor, who did not know how to fear. It is true, as you said, we can endure much more than we think we can. But now I see your wounds in the tree of hope remain strong, and the disintegrating woman in the circle. And I want to fall down weeping for you. You hurt. You hurt so much. And no amount of gold dust could ever hide the blood you shed, the tears you shed. I want to protect you from those who would render you a metaphor. When you were a flesh and blood woman, Frida, an artist who lives so ferociously, your work, your words have burned into so many of us. And you said, I am not sick, I am broken, but I am happy as long as I can paint. And what more do we need to continue our art when we are afraid, when we are tired, when we are alone, when we are in pain? Ay, Frida, may my little poems burn like embers and rise like crimson smoke, like tattered phoenixes in your memory and in honor of those for whom each step is an effort, an agony, an internal blaze of lightning, scorching muscle and bone. My little poem for Frida. And this last poem I'm going to share with y'all is actually from the new book that will be coming out January of next year. So one of the things that I mentioned in that poem for fear was that I was afraid of passing before my brother. I was his only caregiver, and he lived with me for 19 years. He passed away last summer at the age of 40. He was a diabetic amputee, and it got to the point where his kidneys failed, and they were recommending another amputation that his body just wasn't going to be able to take. So he passed away in July. And the book I wrote, The Eaters of Flowers, was me sort of figuring out how to live, how to reshape my life after his passing. He'd been my priority for 20 years, and I was completely lost. And so I wrote a book to make sense of that. And this poem I wrote very early on, because I kept finding myself having a very strong reaction to everybody who kept telling me that he was still with me, and that his spirit was still with me. And this is the poem that came out. I know they mean well when they say my brother is still with me, but I hope he isn't. In his last days, he was forgetting where he was, and my name, and his own name. He was forgetting all of it, and he knew only enough to trust my voice and my hand holding his hand, and that he wasn't alone, and that I would take care of anything he needed. I hope he's walked on to the next world without any memory of this one. Hope he's forgotten all the pain, all the anger. I hope he's forgotten his childhood and my father, forgotten bullies and homophobes, forgotten bruises and broken hearts, forgotten despair and hurt. I hope he's forgotten doctors and painkillers and surgeries and hospitals and wounds and pain. Oh, I hope he's forgotten pain. Even if it means he's forgotten me, even if our difficult years and our beautiful years live only in my heart, even if he doesn't remember all our adventures, all our tears, all our laughter, even if he doesn't remember our years of colors and words and music and flowers. Because even when he didn't know my name, he still smiled at me and looked so kindly upon me. And I couldn't have prayed for anything more at his peaceful moment of passing. I hope he remembers nothing, even if it means I send all this love that still lives in me out in no particular direction. In the first rain afterwards, I saw him in the white rain lilies sprouting roadside, saw him in the greening of the revived blades of grass, saw him when the leaves started to change color, and I saw him when the crimson crowns of thorns started blooming. May his spirit be racing in delight from one streak of lightning to another. May it be curled in comfort in the petals of roses and peonies. May it be watching in wide-eyed delight as the dew forms each morning. May his spirit be drifting in the soft clouds overhead. May it be visiting the snow-covered chollas, blooming a soft yellow. May his spirit be running with the howling of the coyotes I heard tonight and last night and the night before. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really sitting with that and all of the hearts coming through the chat and the hands and the claps. And I want those to feel like the real ones coming to you. Yeah, my mom died a couple years ago. And like that I'm going to be sitting with that poem for a while. Thank you so much. Our next reader is another amazing poet. I'll just keep saying that all night. Urayoan Noel. Urayoan Noel is the author of 8 books of poetry, most recently Transversal, University of Arizona Press, which was longlisted for the PEN Open Book Award and named a Book of the Year by the New York Public Library. He's also published The Critical Study, Invisible Movement, Nuyorican Poetry from the 60s to Slam, University of Iowa Press, winner of the LASA Latino Studies Book Prize and an MLA honorable mention. As a translator of Latin American poetry, Noel has been a finalist for the National Translation Award and the Best Translated Book Award. His international performances include Poesy Festival of Berlin, Barcelona Poesie, that's like poetry, and the Toronto Biennial of Art. And his work has been exhibited at the Museum of the City of New York and the Museo de Arte de Puerto Rico. Originally from Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico, Noel lives in the Bronx and teaches at New York University, as well as Stetson University's MFA of the Americas. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Saleem. Good afternoon, good evening, poetas. I'm honored and thrilled to be with you. I've already learned and been challenged and sustained so much and filled with so much joy and possibility. Gracias, gracias. What a joy to share the evening with so many fellows, old and new, and with ire'ne, whose work means so much to me personally and as a critic and teacher. Shout out again to Saleem and Sheila, everyone at Zoeglossia, and to all their interpreters for the beautiful flow. Jose, keeping the fuego, gracias. I am a mixed race, light-skinned man with a graying black beard and mustache, beige shirt and hat in an off-white room with blue-gray curtains in the South Bronx, Lenape land. And now I'm holding an iPhone with Brian Eno's Bloom app, which I'll use for sound and visual ambient, as well as to assuage my epileptic synapses. So just consider it some ambient. This first poem refers to a seizure I had over 15 years ago that cost me a couple of front teeth, and beautifully, I just lost one of the crowns. Perfect timing. So I'm just gonna own it. You know, viva our beauty. So. My burning hemisphere. Irony is like the time I lost my 2 front teeth, collapsing on the street outside the drugstore. Too late for refills, but just in time to fall. I ended up at St. Vincent's Hospital in a hallway where the sunlight flickered like synapses under strobes. Now the hospital is gone, and the newspaper reports on the clinics that replaced it. Losing the muse, I find myself siding with the lost. A damaged beauty, a music I can't manage, no words for it in either of my native tongues. Rumor in both. I'm a mirror image of a hemisphere in shards, a hum that lumbers through the war zones, an axon, an aimless song, calling the fire home, home, home. Mi hemisferio ardiente. La ironía es como cuando perdí los 2 dientes de adelante, desmayado en la calle frente a la farmacia, demasiado tarde para la receta, pero justo a tiempo para la caída. Acabé por fin en el hospital St. Vincent en un pasillo cuyos destellos de sol eran como sinapsis estroboscópicas. Ahora el hospital ya no está y los diarios describen las clínicas que han tomado su lugar. Extraviada la musa, me hallo del lado de los perdidos, una belleza averiada, una música que no manejo, pues me faltan las palabras en mis 2 lenguas nativas, rumor en ambas. Soy el reflejo de un hemisferio hecho trizas, un zumbido que se arrastra entre zonas de guerra, un axón, un cantar sin rumbo, llamándole hogar a las llamas, llamas, llamas. Okay, thank you. This is a take on the American cinquain, right? So it's 2, 4, 8, and 2 syllable lines, making up stanzas. And I do this also as a way to try to compress the synaptic overload in my brain. I play a lot around with form and think about what exceeds form, what is uncontainable within form. So I call them performalist poems, right, at the limits of form. And I'll just switch between the English and Spanish. Dream cinquains, oníricas, or cinquains in French pronunciation. In dreams, sueño, I'm 20 times que soy 20, stronger than the high tide, veces más fuerte que, and the sun hits my face for once, la marea, sol que dora, statues, ora, crumble, cero, into the sea, las estatuas, as I trace my orbit, se desploman al mar in neural clouds unraveling, trazo mi órbita, mi gris, into nube, stormlight, sube, my only flag, ser tormenta, a vision in bleak hours, única bandera, bring me back to the brine that vuelta a la salmuera que nos named us, nombra. And so these last few pieces are from a long poetic prose project that ranges from my native Puerto Rico to Taino land, to the South Bronx, where I live, to Florida, where I spend time with my disabled mother, and also in conversation with the work of Aurora Evans Morales, who I've talked about in workshop. Synapses, Melbourne, Florida. Mom has limited mobility, so the communion comes to her. The pastor's accent is hard to place. He's been here a while. The body of the Lord is queer. No mass, no master, no mastery of tongue. But I guess this is outreach. Communion is community. The body of crisis. We associate diaspora with mobility, forced. But what of a diaspora disabled and displaced, disaster shaped like the mouth of the polluted river that feeds into the nearby Atlantic? Slave histories, silences that ensure our suffering. Who died for us? The word of God's within, without sin. Synapses, Palm Bay, Florida. Letting go of her walker, my mom asked the man behind the pawn shop counter where he's from. Cabo Rojo, he answers, west part of the island. My mom says she could tell. I couldn't. I walk across old laptops and headphones, toaster ovens and guns, wondering what diaspora means to him. He is the manager, but who manages him? It's a franchise chain in a strip mall town Wikipedia calls the least walkable in the US. City that can't be walked, missing barrio, and yet I walk past the nail salons and outlets smelling ackee and oxtail, all you can eat sushi, empanadas, pernil lonche, all becoming one, the alchemy of synesthetic transit. Mom walks too when she can, slowly, as if to hold on to something that isn't here. We all do, no bay here, just the palms of our hands. And now switching to Puerto Rico, in the town of Isabela on the northwest coast, where my grandfather is from. Comarca. En el insomnio de mi comarca hay grises regiones agonizantes y caras desdoblándose y voces taladrando los cimientos hacia la corteza convulsa de espasmos y espuma entre risas adoloridas y todo el descontrol del mundo habitable. Locality. In the insomnia of my locality, there are gray and agonizing regions and faces splitting in two and voices drilling into the foundations towards the convulsive core with its spasms and foam amid pained laughter and all the turmoil of the habitable world. Red. En nuestros ojos sobran matojo y garza y tortuga marina o bien el carey de las caminatas por la arena con los zapatos en las manos, entre las cuales suena algo que no es un teléfono, sino algo como la conectividad del archipiélago que somos o que fuimos o seremos, como red de pesca o de neuronas de pulpo y el salitre de la última cena que unge la palabra nativa de donde vienen todas las señales y todos los destellos que llamamos poemas. Our eyes net. Our eyes are teeming with weeds and herons and sea turtles, or rather the hawksbill of our walks on the sand with our shoes in our hands, inside of which buzzes something that's not a telephone, but rather the connectivity of the archipelago we are, or that we were, or will be, like a fishing net, or the neurons of an octopus, and the salt air of the Last Supper, anointed by the word that is native to where all the signals come from, and the flash of everything we call a poem. And so I'll leave you with the poem that I published in the issue, in the Poem of the Week, Zoeglossia sampler. And so thanks again to all the Zoeglossia crew for the opportunity to build these bridges. Neuroqueer. Es decir, que te desmayas y no te hallas. Es la voz que te pierde, que se te pierde en el umbral de la noche y su baba que no acaba, bota a chorros. Es decir, que al jevo no le gusta, que tu furor lo asusta y que la poesía es un conjuro de trepanaciones. Es alambres en el cráneo, el combustir incontrolable de naciones. Es la soledad en la discoteca de incontables pisos donde todos se buscaban su polvo para hacerle cortocircuito a su cerebro y el tuyo siempre en fuego. Es lo ebrio de estar vivo en plena convulsión planetaria. Cuando la red eléctrica ya no aguanta, date duro, bien duro contra el pavimento y pierde dientes y amigos y agoniza sentimientos bajo frisas de metal en hospitales de imperio con vista a los fuegos artificiales que llevarás dentro. Es saber que siempre hay un río que te cruza y que da al mar de donde vienes y donde mueres. Es escribir esto en un torrente de energía neural y luego colapsar. Neuroqueer is when you pass out and can't find yourself, is losing your voice in the threshold of night and the pooling drool that unspools. It's that guy you're with that can't take your frenzy. It scares him. And that poetry conjures trepanations. It wires on your cranium, the uncontrollable combustion of nations. It's a solitude at the club with never-ending stares where they all hooked up and sniffed to short-circuit their brains. And all the while, your brain had been on fire. It's the drunkenness of being alive on a planet that convulses. When the grid's about to give out, crash hard, so hard against the pavement and lose teeth and friends and let death's door open your senses under metal blankets in the hospitals of empire with a view of the fireworks you'll carry inside you. It's always knowing that a river runs through you and that it leads to the sea where you're from and where you die. It's writing this in a torrent of neural energy and then collapsing, never running out of words, but wanting to run out, longing for the hollowness of coal in a subsoil you can grasp. Nominal crag, it's to feel nothing and feel everything, to swoon over him or over her and them or over how. Epileptic and neuroqueer are anagrams for epic I pelt and oh ruin cure respectively. It's when the epileptologist tells you the verbal part of your brain compensated for the damaged part and that he's surprised you're functional, and that word makes you think of the perfunctory. And maybe that's what you are, a perfunctory word sorter serving any and no function from the newborn's drool to the ever relentless drive and back to the galactic ooze. It's knowing that your mother takes your same anti-seizure medication and that neither of you is afraid of death because you've always been in that threshold of knowing nothing but the beauty of a constellated alphabet. It's that untranslatable kindling described by Aurora Levins Morales, that provisional neural corporeal activation of ours and nobody's. Let it irradiate and make ruins out of the fathomable mind body until it staves in and becomes something that resembles that uncontainable music, overwhelming the spigots of a burning city. Esa música incontenible en las espitas de una ciudad que se quema. Gracias.
Thank you so much. We have a slight shift in our lineup. Tomorrow we will be joined by Heidi Andrea Restrepo Rhodes tomorrow. So you have yet another thing to look forward to in your day tomorrow, sharing some space with Heidi. So tonight, Si-Ling is going to be reading up next. I'll go ahead and read their bio. Si-Ling is a Hong Kong-born writer who lives between cultures. In their artistic practice, they often explore the living and spirit worlds, philosophy, and translingual poetics. They studied creative writing and art history at Hollins University. Drawing from narrative practice, they are developing a series of anti-disciplinary workshops for the poet and everyone. Please welcome Si-Ling.
Thank you, Saleem. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, thank you. It's such an honor to be here, and it's such an honor to follow our two faculty and their incredible performances, and to be here with all my fellows and audience members. My name is Si-Ling. I am an agender Southern Chinese person with pale sun-starved skin at the moment and shoulder-length black hair. I'm wearing gold rimmed glasses and a black top with like a black and white kind of geometric print scarf. I'm sitting in my living room in London, and behind me is a lamp and a framed print of a person who is half human and half hair. I'm going to be reading 2 poems for you all tonight. This first one is one of those poems that kind of like flies out of you, knowing that it wants to be out in the world, knowing what shape it wants to take, what it wants to look like and to sound like. So I'm not really sure I can like take credit for this poem. I'm sure some of you know that feeling. So this is Dream Date. I no longer must draw blood from stone. It comes unbidden from high up spring, the climb not daunting or littered with loose rocks that betray footing. I shut my eyes and let curiosity lead, relieved not to be plucking my companion's teeth from their panting mouth to grind into words they ply me with bread baked before dawn reached into the kitchen with a sweetness. They pick berries the color of their heart, plant them on my tongue, saying, I want you to taste depth as night falls. They wrap me in, their body tells me the story of each star, and I lay down my dagger. And then I'm going to read a second poem. And this is part of a group of poems I recently started writing that are like part ekphrasis, part meditation, part exploration of like Chinese pictograms, which I'm like really obsessed with. And so Chinese pictograms kind of form some portion of like modern Chinese characters. The title of this poem is Bao, which means to wrap, to swaddle, to surround. It also means bread and bun and bump and swelling. The pictogram looks kind of similar to its contemporary form, and it depicts like a fetus or a placenta inside of a womb, and also like a swaddled baby. I've actually made it my profile picture, so I'm just gonna turn off my video so that you can see. This is one of the versions of the pictogram. It kind of evolved over time. Okay, so this is Bao. Some things can only be understood as part of the body from birth, before birth. Tongue as native, land as culture, culture as landscape. Landscape not as backdrop, but womb and mother's milk. I take no pleasure in stripping down meaning-loading sounds, sounds that are not words without other words. Not like apple, not like, huh? In the land where apples are apples, the name I was given becomes beak filler. Well-intentioned, but filler all the same. So I keep it secret. Take me back to the tree sparrows who have known me since I began. Everywhere we go, my mother walks near to me as if she, no longer landscape, would swallow me whole again. I smell the colostrum. We deserve a fresh start. My tongue stays native. Her milk stays mother. Thank you.
Oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to make it through this night. This is incredible. Oh, thank you so much, Si-Ling. I have the pleasure of welcoming. Oh man, okay. I have the pleasure of welcoming Jonathan Fletcher next. Originally from San Antonio, Texas, Jonathan Fletcher, a disabled poet of color, currently resides in NYC, where he is pursuing a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing at Columbia University School of the Arts. His work has been featured by the League of Women Voters of the San Antonio area and the Briscoe Western Art Museum. He has served as a poetry editor for Exchange, Columbia's literary magazine for incarcerated writers and artists. Please join me in welcoming Jonathan Fletcher.
Thank you, Saleem. Thank you, all of the organizers and the facilitators, instructors, and interpreters. That this has been amazing. Si-Ling, that was incredible. Just a visual description. I'm in my apartment. There's bright light behind me. There's a wooden dresser. I'm in a black dry fit shirt. I'm a Hispanic male, light brown skin, black wire rim glasses, and short black hair. Come to the right. I'm going to be reading one poem tonight. It's entitled "Broke," and this poem kind of came to me when I was reading Asia Wadood's Syncope and M. Naborse Phillips' Zong. It's very different subject matter, but I was thinking, how trauma, when we talk about trauma, it can concern, of course, whole peoples and generations of peoples, but also, particular parts of the body, even parts of the brain. I was born with a lesion on my brain, which caused my expressive aphasia. And so I was thinking, is there something instructive maybe about the style and splicing words and having them, go all over the page, which as you'll see if you read along. That's kind of where I'm coming from, and I'm splicing phrases I even found on the internet from like dictionary.com about Broca's area. So without further ado, and I put the titles of the books in the chat, the titles I referenced. I will go ahead and read Broke. Broke. Broke, broca, broke up, brocas, broke, broke up, broken, broke in, broke up, broca's area, broken area. Is mine broken? Did I break my broca's area? What a fragile area, named after Paul Broca, Paul Broken. Paul Broca was his name. His name was Paul Broca. Paul Broca was a French physician. The physician's name was Paul Broca. It is a region of the brain. A brain's region is it. Paul Broca was his name. The brain has many regions. His name was Paul Broca. This is one of the regions named after Paul Broca. One of the regions is it. On the left side of the frontal lobe, Paul Broca was a French physician. The frontal lobe's left side. His name was Paul Broca. Sits this region. Paul Broca was a French physician. The brain has many regions named after Paul Broca. It is all regional. It is all regional. His name was Paul Broca. This region sits. Paul Broca was his name. On the left side of the frontal lobe, this region sits. It is associated with. It is associated with. Paul Broca was a French physician. The production of speech named after Paul Broca. The production of speech. This is one of the regions. Paul Broca was his name. Speech must be produced. His name was Paul Broca. There must be production of speech. This is one of the regions. Speech must be produced on the left side of the frontal lobe. What a cabalistic idea, named after Paul Broca. Speech must be produced. This is one of the regions. What a cabalistic idea. There must be production of speech. On the left side of the frontal lobe, there is always a quota of speech. The physician's name was Paul Broca. What is the quota of speech? This is one of the regions. All speech has a quota named after Paul Broca. I must meet that quota of speech. The region sits. There is a quota of speech to be met. Paul Broca was a French physician. The quota of speech must be met. On the left side of the frontal lobe, I must meet that quota of speech. His name was Paul Broca. The quota of speech must be met. This is one of the regions named after Paul Broca. One of the regions is this. There is a quota of speech to be met. I must meet that quota of speech. This is all regional. Paul Broca was a French physician. His name was Paul Broca. I must be broken. There is always a quota of speech. Broken must I be. Paul Broca was a French physician. I must be broken. One of the regions is it. All speech has a quota. This is one of the regions. Broken must I be. His name was Paul Broca. It is all regional. Others have called me broken. The quota of speech must be met. On the left side of the frontal lobe, broken is what others have called me. Am I not broken? I am not broken. This is one of the regions. His name was Paul Broca. It is associated with. Paul Broca was his name. There is always a quota of speech. The brain has many regions. I am not broken. Am I not broken? Am I not broken? I am not broken. Speech must be produced. This is all regional. Paul Broca was his name. I am not broken. Speech must be produced. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. What a capitalistic idea. What if it's broken on the left side of the frontal lobe? What if it's broken? What a capitalistic idea. Paul Broca was his name. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. There must be production of speech. Am I not broken? It is all regional. His name was Paul Broca. It is associated with what a capitalistic idea. I am not broken. Paul Broca was a French physician. I am not broken. This is one of the regions. Am I not broken? The production of speech named after Paul Broca, not broken, and I. Though something broke in me, I am not broken. One of the regions is this, not broken am I. There is a quote of speech to be met. Though something broke in me, I am not broken. Paul Broca was his name, I am not broken. This is one of the regions. Though something broke in me, speech must be produced. Though something broke in me, his name was Paul Broca. Though something broke in me, I am not broken. This is all regional, I am not broken. Paul Broca was his name, I am not broken. I am not broken. I am not broken. Not broken. Not broken. 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 Thank you.
Oh, I was unmuted. I hope y'all didn't hear me over going, Oh, oh my gosh. I'm gonna let more of the hearts populate the chat. Let more of the claps populate the chat. Thank you. Thank you, Walela, for calling me out. Oh, thank you so much. These readings are giving me life tonight, y'all. For real. One more round of love for Jonathan Fletcher, please. Thanks, everyone. We are going to welcome our next reader into the space, Kris Ringman. Make sure Kris is spotlighted, and then I'll go. Thank you. Kris Ringman, she, they, is a deaf, queer poet, novelist, and artist. They are the author of Sail Skin poems, Hand Type Press 2022, and 2 Lambda Literary Finalist books, I Stole You, Stories from the Fae, Hand Type Press 2017, and Makara, a novel, Hand Type Press 2012. Kris is currently working on their next poetry collection and lyrical fiction novels that play along the boundaries of magical realism, fantasy, and horror. Please welcome Kris Ringman.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, I use they and she pronouns. I'm sitting in front of a wall with some paintings of mine in the background, an owl and Mount Washington. And I'm in a black tank top with tattoos and red hair and light skin. Okay, so I'm gonna read 3 poems from Sail Skin. A better language. I lost the letter S first. This was catastrophic because I was a spelling champion. Words were my objects of adoration long before I could hold them in my hands, spell with my fingers. Each year, from 4th grade until 12th, I sat 1 seat closer to the front of the class. Words began to flow together, waves muffled by the sound of their own crashing. But I refused to drown. Filling one journal after another, I spoke to imaginary friends in the dark of my bedroom every night because I could still hear them. At 13, I stepped into the deaf world through summer camp, where I learned how to hold the letters with my fingers, how to merge 2 signs together when you sing. I was free. I found a language I would never fail to understand. But soon I realized 90% of the people I knew would never learn it. If I dwell on this too much, how I want to go back and forget the way to hold words in my hand. I want to stuff everyone else's voices in jars, hide them on a shelf, retreat to a cabin in the woods where the languages between the foxes I've seen, the dogs I've loved, and the trees that I've embraced never changes. Okay, Second poem is called If Paws Were Hands. I see the voices of the forest in my head all the time. Not only the foxes, but bears, rabbits, and deer too. Their eyes tell me stories I read in the darkness. Hands in the air spell out their feelings of horror, only matched by my own. When I check the news, that reads like an absurd science fiction novel written by a man in a tower at the end of the world, envisioning all of the ways humans have already wrecked this place, argued over every law they've made, erected their cities through the heart of the forest, while the squirrels line their fleeting homes with the prayer flags I've tied between the trees that are signing in my head. Branches nimble with revulsion, buds falling to the ground as they scream. This world we've been born into was never ours to destroy. If paws were hands, they would love to tell us the nightmares they have every time one of us takes a step into their world we have taken, piece by piece. I tell myself I am not one of the humans carrying their trash and their guns into the forest, but will it ever be enough? Last one. Fox skin. There are times when I am standing at the edge of the beach. The open mouth of water beside me is so vast, I tumble into it. I can't see my own skin or your sail skin, but I feel you as an extension of me. The same way I feel the fox skin wrapped so tightly around my bones. I forget I do not have 4 paws against the sand. I've felt such multitudes inside, a mess of brilliant orange in a world of gray. Sometimes only the broken pieces are showing, but that doesn't mean the rest isn't whole. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kris. Thank you. Could everyone please extend some more love to Kris before we head towards our next reader of the evening? One more for Kris, please. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next up is Petra. Petra Kuppers, she, her, is a disability culture activist and a community performance artist. Her third poetry collection, Gut Botany, was named one of the top 10 US poetry books of 2020 by the New York Public Library and won the 2022 Creative Book Award by the Association for the Study of Literature and the Environment. She is a 2023 Guggenheim Fellow. Please welcome Petra Kuppers.
Thanks so much, dear ones. It's lovely to be part of this circle. I'm so delighted to be a first-year fellow. And I am a white, cis, queer woman of size with silver-pelled hair, with yellow glasses, with a silver lipstick that's called mermaid tears, and with a hand brace. And I'm sitting in my parents-in-law's house up North Michigan on Anishinaabe territory, and I'm realizing that there's some really interesting and strange art pieces behind me. So they're interesting. I think they will be interestingly engaging with the word that I'm sharing with you. So I'm going to read one poem. So as you've heard, I'm a performance artist, and part of my work is to go around and be in different locations, and I ask people, what are the core environmental issues that are alive for the land, the air, the water, for where we are, where we meet, where we're in community, and people tell me their stories, and that's part of the material. So the poem that I'm sharing with you is from my new collection, Diver Beneath the Street, which will come out next year around this time. with Wayne State University Press again. And I think the only word that some people might not have heard of, and it's good if you haven't heard of it, it's a really good thing, so count yourself lucky, is the word PFAS, P-F-A-S, which are these eternal toxins that lodge in the soil, and they're very much all around here in Michigan where I am. They're part of the toxic brown sites around here. They're part of what needs to be remediated in order for this to become a more livable space for all of us. So that's the one word that I think you might need to know about. Earth séance, and this has an epigraph. What blows in curbside weeds is not insect embroidery. Deal with us. We are the dead, writes Justin Philip Reed. Quartered, you enter. Vivisected, you enter. Push toward dispersal. Scatter yourself to the water, winds, slime sensation drains through soil, mix with compost and mulch. Metal core, magnetic pulse. Worm mouths, cool and soft, slide along edges. Sunshine warms through the inches, sucks moisture upward. Release hormones, pheromones, send molecules to drift, drift over, drift toward the Huron River, drift toward Lake Erie. Sun, wind, ice, slides all year you lose yourself to multitudes, fragment, filaments, entangle with sticky water, with carbon, dusted snow. PFAS, eternal elements, cling to mercurial tension, drop, elongate. Do not let go, clasp so hard to this spot, slot in the bone, in the fatty tissue of the drop of the eyelid. In the earth séance, you are drawn to it all, to the veils of the sky and the deep brown dark earth core and the shimmering root. You slide along the channels of this soil, microbial dance, chemical scepter, ballroom of the square inch holds you in thrall. Thank you.
Petra, you're okay. You're okay on time if you'd like to read Night Dive.
All right, sure. I go. All right, and I read another one. Okay, cool. This is also from Diver Beneath the Street. And like the previous one, I actually haven't performed either of those. These are all, I just kind of put the manuscript together. So so there are these newer poems. They're not super new, but they haven't been part of a public performance repertoire. So enjoying reading these. It's great. Night Dive. Painkillers, please soar and soak my stomach's lining, drench, dissolve in acid, spread lake-like deep inside, sink to shallow pool, roiled by spasms, muscles in weak revolt. Then nerves lie fallow, capped, broken, small veins in my cheek, around my nose, sun-damaged childhood, coconut oil scent and heat like a blanket fort. Young birch tree caress in my soft hand, grass, beetle, crumbs of earth spill brown, last moisture hint licks sun, ancient stars heat death, rays funnel from afar to my brown eye, to this ache of finger rail stretch, stop toward pig pill bug who rolls in response. Laughter sings, sing to blackbird, to raven, to eagle, to robin, red cheeks dimple underwater, under tears, cat lick, dog, pink tongue, clicks of paws on tiles. Water, spray this thin mud, wash away salt and sand and clay. Lavage, thin acid, eat this pain. Nudge, invite, call to spider, fly, earthworm, caterpillar, to aurora hospital, supportive care. Air filter unit, oxygen, janitor's tread, mop slurp, night beeps, thrills, laughing gas, to stop, to stop, to stop, to stop, to stop. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Petra. And continued thanks to Jose for the incredible I can't even say the word interpretation. Thanks so much as well, Tom. Watching your work and bringing to life the work of the poets tonight is a gift. Just for people who can't read the chat, ire'ne just said, Petra, I refuse to buy your next book unless I can call you and have you read it to me. So get in line, get in line. I am excited to welcome our next poet to the space, Feannag. So if we have our spotlights going. Jeez, if I'm
Sorry, who's next?
Feannag, Rel Feannag. I don't see.
He's not here. I've been trying to get.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I didn't see the square, but I wasn't sure. Okay, so we will transition. Sylvia Chan, you will be up next. Hopefully, your here's a Leo. Yes, thank you. Hopefully, Sylvia, if you need a couple minutes, let me know, because I understand if you weren't necessarily on deck yet. Or I can just read your bio nice and slowly as well. So just give a thumbs up if you'd like me to proceed. I will go ahead.
Saleem, I'm sorry. I think Rel is here.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Yeah, he was
okay.
named under Leo. So I got him in now.
Thank you. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Rel. I've been looking forward to sharing space with you. So Rel Feannag is a queer, trans, and multiply disabled writer who survived a rural childhood of religious cults and institutional violence. He focuses on building narratives across mediums to explore how stories communicate with and through each other. His work explores PTSD, disability, bodily autonomy, abuse, and the survival power of rage in art. He writes in spite and with hope. Please welcome Rel to the space.
Hi, everyone. So for a visual description, I am a white person with shoulder length, dark brown hair. I'm wearing a white button-up shirt with my crow skull necklace, and I have black rimmed glasses, black headphones, and a tapestry of the very foggy, mysterious Pacific Northwest. And the piece I'm reading today is in honor of Frankenstein and that feeling of misplacedness and monstrosity that kind of comes with being both disabled and queer, and fighting that innate sense of wrongness and what that means. It is titled A Horror Story in 5 Acts of Violence. 1. If love is supposed to transcend, why am I dead? If love is supposed to win out, why am I still on the cold tiles, trying to rip my heart out, but only finding an empty indent? Like someone punched a metal sheet and left blood stains, ink stains, dripping down my fangs, bleeding on the sheets. I'm trying to write with my bones dipped in the darkness, but it doesn't stick, leaving imprints of the words I don't say, the things I don't want to recollect. I do not understand what I am supposed to do if everything I am is wrong. I breathe, all heads swivel. All eyes turn on me. Monsters, bloodthirsty, salivating. What if I went from prey to predator? What if they turned me? What does that make me? More rage than light, hatred instead of atoms, anger, marrow in my bones, forgiveness, patience, forged from goodness I no longer have, I am nothing, but pain, sorrow, and the rail-splitting headache you get when the exhaustion overtakes. I am overwhelming. I contain bloodthirsty screams, desperate to be let free as kindness eludes me. I do not know how to sustain myself any other way. I want to be better. The candles whispering, calling me back to gentle prayers, soft hands, delicate movements, kneeling, healing, begging. 2. My mother has a wrist that broke and was never set right as a kid. When I was sewn up, back into a semblance of form, I was remade in rage, dangerous threats to set me right, a violent follow-through ringing hollowly in my ears. I cried all the love out to survive until nothing was left but the cold, chilled cavern. The wind bites me, whips me. Every inhale is sharp and I can thrive off the pain like no other. Now I am home amongst the dead things. Light eludes me despite my straining against that which redesigned me. I have not known love since, but it sounds very warm. 3. Like the heart beating beneath the cross on my classmate's chest, causing my lungs to constrict, my blood to freeze, I cannot focus on anything but the holy symbol of that which was supposed to save me and how it let me fall, 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 fall. Not sauntering, that implies choice, and they do not believe in such things. How my nose bled while they jeered, how I had a nightmare of being thrown out the window, my still fighting body decapitated by the rocks below. My sins washed away as the river carried me elsewhere. My eyes were supposed to say the same, but I don't recognize myself. They're so tired. There is no gold. There is simply a parasite, and I am afraid it's me. 4. Because I can't escape the feeling of sidewalk under my feet, the hands on me that I couldn't stop, the scrape of the tree against my shoulder, the feeling of dropping as I flew, the knife cutting to the very bone as they dragged it up my shoulder, blood pouring everywhere, the ominous smile I wasn't supposed to take seriously, the feeling of hiding and never wanting to be seen, the feeling of pressure points and jealous girls and mocking boys, the feeling of contained rage all tied up with a ribbon of terror, the feeling of that big stage swallowing me whole, the music playing but my body won't move, invisible handcuffs chafing me as I fought the restraints, dizzy from lack of food, twisting and crying and writhing on the cold wooden floor, the dark purple walls closing in, the escapable panic. She grabbed my shoulders and he grabbed my waist and they slapped my ass and she punched my stomach and he hit my face and she smiled and he grinned and my body's not mine now, but I guess it was never mine to begin with, huh? 5. So trying to figure out what to do, I remember what I've been taught. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Your little lives don't count at all. You're born with sin, the Catholic model, and you gotta work to make up for that from birth, baby. Do the right thing, you get the reward. First, when you're 5, it's a piece of chocolate. You can only hope when you're dead, it's heaven. I just want a roadmap, I plead. I beg, I ask, I cry, I do everything I've done since I was 5 years old, staring at the cross and drinking the blood of Christ out of a sippy cup, waiting for the universe to show up for me, and when it doesn't, take my life into my own hands. Still, somehow, I end up on the side of the road. Gravel in my palms, the rain sizzling on my burned skin, the abbey bells in the distance calling out for evening prayers to keep the monstrous at bay, and all I can do is ask, over and over and over, the mantra that marks my bones, my childhood, the walls I crawled up trying to get out. What do you want from me? Thank you.
Rel, thank you. Yes, many more hearts. We need like more emoji options, and I understand why we're cut short, because as poets we would literally be doing this on our keyboards as expressions of so much gratitude for that reading. Thank you so much. I have the pleasure of welcoming our final poet. I'm sorry, Si-Ling in the chat literally just nailed it. I don't know. Yes, okay, good. So everybody understood what I meant. Just the characters in the chat is how much life there is right now. I'm going to introduce our final poet of the evening before we transition into some Q&A and discussion. Sylvia Chan. Sylvia Chan is an amputee cyborg writer, educator, and activist. Her debut poetry collection is We Remain Traditional, published by the Center for Literary Publishing in 2018, and her foster care essays appear in The Rumpus, Prairie Schooner, the Cincinnati Review, and the Best American Non-Required Reading 2019. She is a National Poetry Series and Mellon Foundation grant finalist for her work and writing workshops for foster group homes. She lives in Tucson, where she teaches at the University of Arizona and works with crossover youth. She enjoys playing piano, making dim sum, and training her second Belgian, I was gonna practice the dog's name, and training her second Belgian Malinois for ADA compliance. Please welcome Sylvia.
Hello, fellow community. Thank you for being here. I am an Asian American woman with long dark hair who's wearing a striped blue and white shirt. In the background, there is a bookshelf, and if you see her, my Belgian Malinois is my service dog. I am in Tohono O'odham Pascayaqueland, Tucson, Arizona. I'm going to read 2 amputation poems. Can I say this is a space where I don't feel extra for talking about myself. It's not too many amputation poems, or is a metaphor about losing my hand, just a metaphor. Zoeglossia has been everything to me, and I still can't believe I'm blessed to be here. This first poem I wrote during my last retreat after that interstitial space during a workshop and the lingering conversations before the next. To Hold Hands Again, after Dolores Maybe by John Murillo. My hand was rewoven once, twice. This spring I fell into a sleep that erased my memories. Coma, they said, would not touch me. My disability would walk again, small steps up the road before feeling dizzy, before placing my prosthetic on his hip so I could steady. This was Oakland, California, 2010. No protests. I wouldn't know protection if it followed me. I wanted to walk alone. His jacket knew me when the breeze bit me. I never took it off. I kissed him on the cheek and said I would return with his menthols. Same through Koreatown, never thinking I want to cut through Koreatown so we could smell our favorite stews. Never wishing I could loop my hand to his belt buckle and feel less lonely. My witness is a mirror, curving back to when I clenched the marl whorls in my hand, in my palm, a stone. My witness is brushing my hair from my face. How in feeling, I heard the siren before I stopped at his street. How I never saw him after that, except when they carried him. His long limbs, his soft hands, and the gunshot wounds circling his chest. I wanted to lie with him, to pelt him with my stone hand, to implore for his stay inside instead of going out to find me, because he feared I would not make it. I never finished our walks and never alone. In my 2010 Oakland, California. My first love leaving before I could loop my body again. I've never written to anyone until now, until you. Please, I want to remember his touch every time my hand refuses to feel again. Tethered to my prosthetic are fingertips, strung like a razor wire, an ornament that dances a path I wish I could hold on. I'm going to read one more poem. This second one is from my book, We Remain Traditional, about my grandfather, or perhaps my grandmother. Prodrome. The body canopies arrive at midday after the principal has been quartered with a donkey tied to each limb. The murderers send boxes too for the stumped parts. My grandmother won't receive her entire husband, just his wrists. Pinpricks of severed nerves like opium needles in the back of a heel, framing the base of his white hand. In my history, my maternal grandfather could have been any number of quartered souls. Pulling the hair off his leftover 4 fingers didn't mean it was his. My grandmother just had to know. I wish for selfish victories, arguments, sick days, the resolve to stay unmarried. Our chaste love in a low-slung bar, sharing craft beers to Lana Del Rey's Jesus and Her Dashboard. You talk about drinking hollow at college graduation, then rushing to the emergency room for another accident. The picket fence spliced through the girl's body, the fatal price for attempted robbery. Did the rope slice through my grandfather the same way? A stern warning to make amends before it's too late. Nothing psychologically glorious. No terror, please. My grandmother's voice aches like perfect storms or Alice Notley poems. What does occupation do to a person? I'm too busy trying to salvage my love life to separate the good Chinese terror from the bad. In her storm, my grandmother scats a rhythm that's not jazz or any intelligible English. Nim o nai ho 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 va. Drink more soup. It's good for you. A remedy for all untenable losses. She didn't know she needed to determine the precise weight of her husband's body to claim it. Did she imagine his fingers around her torso? Thank you.
El Lamar in the chat said it. What a poem, what a night. Thank you so much, Sylvia. We please show some love in the chat. We cannot be closed out on a more confident, humble, all-encompassing, brief, expansive note than what Sylvia just shared. So thank you so much. If we could give we're going to go into a little conversation, but if we could please show as much love as we can collectively to the readers, because together everybody created this space. So ire'ne, Urayoan, Si-Ling, Rel, Sylvia, Jonathan, Kris, Petra. If I didn't get, yes, okay. I'm thinking I got everybody. It's just a lot, y'all. This is so much love. Thanks again to Tom and Jose and Tanya and Robbie on support as well. So let's have a little bit of conversation. Yeah, thank you. I guess I should do that for access. So I'm going to read a couple of the chat comments, and they're going to be in no particular order because there's been some really amazing ones. So we have where's the melting emoji? I think was a pretty one that we resonate. We have a lot of thank yous. We have several I want to hear it again, some wow, some goods, different variations on hearts. We've got specific comments on individual poems throughout. You can save the chat in the bottom right if you want to have those comments, because they were very particular to some poems. It was incredible. Just amazing tributes and such a wonderful poems from everyone. Thank you for sharing. What an amazing night. Thank you to everyone. And without words, just simmering in all of your beautiful energies. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This was absolutely life-giving, beautiful, and amazing. All that is the emoji of the evening, the melting. Thanks all for the gift of your words. So as we enter some conversation together, I want to invite the broader members of the community you can type a question into the chat. You can use the Q&A function. And we want to kind of alternate between making sure that we're fielding questions. They can be reflections too. I've been kind of trying to like not necessarily have like the transactional thing of a question. Sometimes it could be a reflection and we can go from there. But you can insert it in any of those ways. You can DM a host as well if you prefer, you know, that your question or comment be anonymous. So we'll kind of alternate between that and then maybe us throwing out some things for the poets to reflect on. So hopefully that sounds good for everybody, and we'll just sort of go until our energy and spoons and time constraints tell us otherwise. Maybe if I could kick a question to the poets, and it's kind of stems out of a question we were considering in a workshop this morning. I would be interested in hearing from people when you are kind of, it doesn't even have to be when a poem is finished, it can be at any point during a poem. What is your hope or your vision for what one of your poems can be, can do, can become, or is? So I'll take that into the chat for access. I was saying, what is hope and vision? Sorry, I went to all caps. I'm not shouting at anybody. Of what your poem is, will be, or was. It could be one of your poems from tonight, would be really awesome, but it doesn't have to be confined to a poem from tonight.
I'll jump in. This is ire'ne, and actually I remember now that I skipped my visual description. So pretty much all my life I've described myself as short, brown, and round. I will add I will add that I'm a dark-skinned Mexican American indigenous person with shoulder-length curly hair. And the art behind me is art by my two friends of mine that live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So to go to the question, I think my hope for every single thing that I write, poem, story, whatever it might be, is that someone somewhere will find in it something of what I found in every bit of writing that I have found myself in, that I have found strength in, that I have found purpose in, that I have found explanation in. All of the many, many books and the many poems and the many works of art that have given me space to breathe and to exist. I hope that, and you know, you have no idea, but you hope that every single thing you write, that there will be someone out there who needed that piece, the same way that I've needed everything that I hope goes to my heart.
Beautiful. I can speak to the performance aspect, because I think obviously a poem in terms of the writing, I don't know, there's many different kinds of writing for many different kinds of poems, but for me, performance, I think of what the late Miguel Garin, founder of the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, you know, he calls, I think in an essay, he calls it transformations before the public eye as a kind of psychic healing. And I really like that idea that, you know, performance poetry in a certain moment became trendy, but if you look at the roots of what was happening in spaces like the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, very much was about somatic, you know, personal and collective trauma, right? And how to tell a story about that, right? That transforms it into something else, you know, from a place of stigma to, you know, to a place of becoming. So I try to bring some of that energy to the performance that I do, and I think also it obviously connects to just the neural energy of, you know, my particular body mind.
Yeah, and I can speak to this too. I think in terms of performance, as someone who's also in that wider framework, to me, the poem is a ritual, a ritual of invitation. And it's a ritual that invites both the human and the non-human world. I mean, that seems to me so exciting to think about how I can be a conduit for what I'm witnessing and a connection point, a nexus, a poetess nexus. Yes, I love that. That would be an ambition. That would be an ambition.
What if we get one or two more reflections on this, and then I'll start going through some of the Q&A that have been submitted. So I'm learning and just really enjoying savoring this.
I can talk about, I liked, Saleem, your question about what is your hope and vision of what your poem is, will be, or was. And kind of actually it ended up being on theme, but the piece that I read is actually compiled of like 4 or 5 different poems that I wrote over the course of like a couple years. And so I didn't really realize that it kind of ended up as like almost like a Frankenstein poem where it was just like compiling all of these different pieces. And I think, yeah, it was so interesting the way that it kind of came together, because in each of them I was like trying to convey an emotion and I didn't really know what I was saying until I kind of was able to like over time and kind of look back and then see how it all kind of made sense, kind of looking further back. So yeah.
Thank you. And another one, and I'm also happy to transition over to questions.
I could say,
Oh, Kris.
for me, I want to break people's hearts because everything I write is my heart breaking open. And I think when we break open our hearts, there's a flame that goes between us. And that's a connection. It's deeper than just even English or signing or anything. It's this deep understanding, and I want to cause enlightenment, something, and give something what they need too, and something like that. So yeah, that's what I think poetry does when it does when it fulfills itself, I guess.
That was rich. Thank you so much. The conduit between us. Thank you. Going to switch over to a couple of questions that have come through. One question, or it's a comment. One comment was about language justice. This is from Bry, one of our fellows. One comment was about language justice, and I found that so interesting that so many of our poets tonight worked with different languages and different forms. How do you choose which forms you want to break in particular?
I can speak to that. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One is I'm a geek like that, so I like just experimenting with forms. I think again, there's just nervous energy that needs to get used up. That's part of it. But I think I'm also interested in embodied and relationships to form and memory. So one of the forms I write in a lot is the decima. Which is a rhymed form, traditional in Spanish, but gets used in oral poetry, right, in Puerto Rico and across Latin America. So, thinking of as a form that I know from my grandparents. So it's also about connecting, my own embodiment to a kind of ancestral memory or a kind of, place of somatic becoming. So I'm really interested in also what the kind of memory of form, right? And I think if we think about specific forms, whether it's the blues poem or a corrido, right? Those those forms have meaning independent of the content in them. And in terms of language, I think I really take seriously the work of people like Ofelia Garcia, right? The linguist, and her notion of translanguaging, right? What does it mean to not have a choice and to have languages inscribed on your body, right? And so thinking very much about translanguaging as the way some of us or some of our communities just cope, right, with having languages written on your body, and also with non-hegemonic varieties of different languages, right? Even if we're quote unquote monolingual, there are many Englishes and many Spanishes, and we code switch trying to navigate, right, spaces of institutional, right, violence, or seeking out community. So I think my own situatedness has given me an appreciation for the ways in which, even if we're monolingual, right, we are navigating pretty fraught, language territories.
I'll jump in on that too. Well, first of all, as I was telling the group yesterday, I don't like following anyone's instructions, not even my own. So I tend to do things like I might start off with a certain form and then I'll blow it up. So my Blood Sugar Canto book has an interrupted sestina and it has an exploded guzzle, and I forget what else there is in there, because there were interesting turns of language that the form inspired, but then I didn't want the rigidity of the form. So then after I took my attempts, I would just blow it up and do something else with it, because that's what I felt was needed. And then kind of tangential to this is, for a long time, I had a lot of conflict because I couldn't figure out how much Spanish and how much English and how much native languages and different things I wanted to include in my work. At the beginning, I also included a lot of song and different performative things. But I think, oddly enough, I think the reason that I write more in English now is because I realized something about both English and Spanish. And that's that both languages, most languages, are made up of broken bits of things. All language is a mosaic. And so it didn't matter if I was writing in English or in Spanish. I was making a mosaic no matter what. So if I was going to write in English, that didn't mean that I still couldn't have the melodic qualities of Spanish. It didn't mean that I couldn't interrupt it with a native language. It didn't mean writing in poetry didn't mean that I couldn't do whatever I wanted on the page, and the same with prose, that I could mix in poetry. I could write nonfiction and mix in poetry. I could make everything poetry. And so realizing that it was all broken, I think freed me to do whatever I wanted.
Let me try. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, for me, I think, well, with the poem I read tonight, Broke in particular, I was thinking, I guess I kind of approached it, with I mean, as you could probably tell, with no specific form in mind, except, a very kind of not disorganized, but loose form all over the page. But that said, I was really interested in the idea maybe of like the limitations of language, or what happens when language breaks down, what happens when language quote unquote fails. And that's really what I tried to do, especially at the beginning and ending, and thinking, and thank you for your question, because I don't know what language justice would look like in that terms. I'm sure it would, but I really was interested in this idea of language sometimes not working in a traditional maybe sense. That's where I kind of approached the issue of language, and specifically my poem Up Broke. So.
Thanks for that, Jonathan. There's another question that's I'll toss out. Walela notes that they've been noticing there's been a theme in some poets' writing where they're exploring grief through other people living or deceased. And the question is, how do you let yourself go there? Let yourself be potentially ruined by the emotion. Let yourself be open enough for new insight.
So y'all might have to realize that I just jump at questions. But but there's two things I wanted to say to this. One, someone once told me that my work made them feel like it had an invitation to people to weep, that there was an open invitation in it. And I was so honored by that, because we don't weep enough and we don't know how to grieve. And I always say, I think my mother taught me how to grieve her. I lost her when I was 26 years old. And it was very painful and difficult. But she taught me how to grieve because she lost her mother before I was born. And the way that she taught me was that I don't remember a single day that I ever spent around her where she didn't remember something about her mother, what her mother loved, what her mother said, it's something her mother had done. And so I think that's helped me in the 20 some years since she's been gone, that there's never a time I go to the kitchen and I don't think of something my mother said. I remember all my mother's proverbs. I remember so many stories that she told me, so many things she taught me. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that when I was 25, I met a friend of mine, Lidia Armendariz. She was 70 at the time, a poet from New Mexico, who wrote some powerful poems about being taken as a child to live in a boarding school far away from her family to learn English and to learn American culture. And she had also witnessed her mother commit suicide when she was 11 years old. So she had some powerful, powerful poems to read. And often when she would read, she'd be holding, the poem, the folder, whatever it was, the poem was in, and her hands would start shaking and her voice would start trembling to the point where she could barely say the word, and she would start weeping. And people were very quick to go up to her and say, oh, you don't have to read this if it's too difficult, or I can read it for you, or let me hold it for you, or let me do this for you, or maybe you want to sit down. And I love the fact that every single time she would react with this ferocity and almost smack the hand of the person trying to take the poems from her, and she would say, no, I am reading this, and my tears and my shaking hands and whatever you hear, it is a gift I am giving you. I am giving you the reality here of what it has cost me to live this life and write this poem and to want to share it with you. And I just thought that that ferocity was so beautiful. And so I've taken that as a lesson for all of my life since, that whatever we give, if we pause, if we hesitate, if we cry, if we shake, if we get weak, if we laugh, whatever we do, like that's part of the honest and open gift of what we're doing by sharing our work. And so I know that we said this a little bit on Wednesday, that none of us should have to apologize for emotion. That's part of what we're sharing. And I think in especially in this circle, in this group, but everywhere we go, we should offer that. And whether or not people understand it as a gift, somebody will.
There is a question that's specific to Noel, but I would also be kind of interested if other folks wanted to reply as well, because I felt numerous times where people are doing this with the language in their work tonight. The question reflection is from Susie, another one of our fellows who read last night. I got the impression during the bilingual presentations of us speaking in tongues. Have you considered employing this further? I recall humming, ellipsis.
Yeah, I think definitely it's coming from, from a tradition. So I think of poets like Pedro Pietri, who I mentioned in workshop, right? Edwin Torres is a later poet. So poets who are really thinking about the rootedness of poetry in traditions of song and spiritual traditions. I wrote an essay as a critic, right, on Torres's own Poetics of Glossolalia. So it was a little bit of me reading some of these poets. But I think for me, I'm really interested in the Buzzing Hemisphere book, the first piece I did, in that kind of poetics of the hum, you know, the wordplay with rumor, right? So the idea that part of what we can do as poets is not just investigate language, but investigate sound, right? And so sound has meaning independent of words, right? And that's important for those of us who live across languages, but also important from a disability perspective, right? In terms of what meaning looks like, right? What kind of expression is worthy, right? Of being taken seriously. I think also in just in terms of affect, right? So, you know, to riff off Irene's beautiful answer, right? To cry is you know, cante hondo, right? To linger with Lorca for a second, right? Is the ultimate poetry. So I'm not sure I want to be a part of a vision poetry, right? Where everything has to you know, everything has to mean, and we are bound to the word. In that sense, you know, I'm also thinking about surrealist, you know, Caribbean surrealist traditions, right? People like Césaire and so on that are important to me. So that deep buried song, right? That buried music that you know, colonialism kicks out of you, right? That buried joy also. So you know, I think being Boricua is also, like people say when we protest, it's a party, you know, and I'm going to bring that, right? So I don't think I know any other way. So maybe a kind of non-ableist party, if we can imagine that. And there again, think about the bomba drum, right? If you hear, and then the drum, how the drum summons you, and that's a political event, the ultimate political event. So you can tell a story about what the drum is doing later, right? But the drum doesn't need the word, right? So you know, it also like things like griot traditions and so on, and you know, a broader kind of Afro-Caribbean sense of the worlds that music makes.
Yeah, definitely don't want to put anybody on the spot for that one, but essentially, I feel like there was a number of moments that in the spirit of speaking in tongues, so you don't necessarily have to use that phrase, but I feel like the spirit of that appeared several times in some of the work tonight, particularly some of the pieces where repetition was intentionally used, breaking pieces down into acts, into chapters, into parts, and then bringing them back together. So yeah, so if anybody has a reflection on that, cool. If not, we could keep our party rolling. Our non-ableist party, rolling, flopping. I mean, it's, you know, breathing. You know, it's yeah. You can move however you can move, right? At our party, and you don't have to move either. I mean, you can definitely just post up and be good.
I like "Let's Get This Party Flopping." I would rock that t-shirt in a second. The Zoeglossia t-shirt, yeah.
AWP 24. Let's get this party flopping, but at an offsite reading that anybody can attend and not to pay, whatever. Cool. I'm not gonna, this is being recorded, so shout out to AWP. Let me maybe close something we sort of closed out on this morning, which I was just asking folks to give a phrase reflection on the space that was sort of co-created tonight, and I would invite people who are in the chat as well to kind of put in a phrase. I'm not saying this is not an assignment. It's just if you are called to put in a phrase sort of summarizing the spirit or the energy of the evening, and then we can carry that with us as we go. And I would read them out loud, but I'm sorry, my second grade twins are struggling in the background. They kind of at the end of a long school week. So if somebody else might be able to voice the comments in the chat, would be appreciated.
I got you. We've got "I Am Not Broken." calling into the circle, ancient and archetypal wisdom, sound and affect, vibrating, refreshing, open, healing, connected. Mourning as loss, mourning as love. Mesmerizing and expansive. Breaking and piecing together language and self. And we've got a bunch of hearts coming up. And we've got a lot of love for comments from before. Urayoan is commenting, gestures as world. Jose's hands say it all. We've got food for the soul. Retrieval. A hue. Weeping from a well I barely know.
Thank you for voicing those. They have each found a different bathroom to take baths. So we've survived another one. Again, folks in the audience are welcome to do this. I want to say the audience because we're all in space together. Even if you're off camera, you're still here. Relieved and relieved and heard, that combo together. Yeah. Okay. Well, I would invite us to take this energy with us as we transition out of the circle. That might mean for you grabbing a Post-it note and just putting a thing on it. That might mean fortifying tenderness of wounds, tenderness of healing have also come into the chat. That might mean just sitting for a moment with the energy that we've had and just letting that be the piece, letting that be the poem, letting that be the response. It was said earlier today, Carl Knights in a workshop said that the poem doesn't end when he's done with it, but it goes out, and when we receive it, then it sort of takes on its completion, perhaps. So maybe that happens with our evening here tonight. Want to give thanks. We have forgiving people and understanding anger. Thank you. I want to give thanks and acknowledgement to our featured faculty tonight. Give thanks and acknowledgement to every one of our poets who shared. I want to give thanks and acknowledgement to our interpreters, to Jose. Thank you so much. The expression, the commitment. Thank you so much, Tom. The consistency, the discipline. We appreciate all of it. And I also want to thank our sponsors, New Mexico State University, for hosting us, having all of our technology work, and to be able to bring us from, I think we have 7 time zones, and however many hours are between those time zones is a whole different math, but we've got like 7 distinct time zones, and just the ability to bring us all together in this era of continued isolation is a gift. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you. Our final public reading is tomorrow. The same time is 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So we look forward to seeing you. Thank all the teammates at Zoeglossia. Yes, thank you, Leslie. You gotta thank the team. I apologize. So thanking all the colleagues and the teammates at Zoeglossia, both behind the scenes, whether it's tech with Robbie, Tanya, with Layla, in front of the scenes, Sheila, Connie, acknowledging their third co-founder, Jennifer, and we appreciate everybody being here tonight with us. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.